When Middle Eastern investors announced Project B, most eyes were still on the WNBA season. But behind the scenes, something more disruptive was forming. Caitlin Clark, who redefined college basketball's reach and ratings, is now being closely linked to this new league. Unlike past ventures that failed under flashy promises, Project B is executing a deliberate, quiet strategy.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Its co-founder isn't just watching. He's following the right people, sending unmistakable signals. These moves, paired with the off-season window, suggest we're not waiting for speculation anymore. A major shift might already be underway. The real story here is power. Who holds it, and who's ready to use it? Project B's promise of life-changing salaries and international exposure confronts the WNBA's long-standing limitations. By targeting Clark, who's proven she can move viewership, ticket sales, and public interest single-handedly, the league is making a calculated bid to rewrite what a basketball career can look like. If this deal lands, it won't just change Clark's path. It could tilt the entire industry's balance of power. Caitlin Clark just got invited to Saudi Arabia by Prince Salman himself. Let that sink in. We are witnessing what might become the biggest, boldest, and most expensive move in women's sports history. A legitimate offer, backed by real Middle Eastern investment, is on the table. And the target? One of the most electric athletes to hit the hardwood in a generation. The name being whispered, followed, tracked across social media. Caitlin Clark. This isn't just buzz. It's strategy. Carefully calculated moves are being made behind the scenes, and they're starting to spill into the public eye. Because when Project B, a brand new Saudi-backed women's basketball league, starts following Clark, Jewel Lloyd, Sophie Cunningham, and other key players on Instagram, it's not a coincidence. That's not random. That's a signal. And you know how social media works in sports now? A follow isn't just a follow. It's a move. It's intent. It's the new we're in talks. And in this case, it's starting to look a lot like pre-negotiation PR, building anticipation while everyone waits for the inevitable next step, a jaw-dropping, earth-shaking announcement. What's different this time is that this isn't some shady, basement-level operation trying to go viral. This is a professionally backed league, reportedly supported by established Middle Eastern investors who have real capital to burn, and they are not here to play small. Their goal? To build a global juggernaut, to create a new model for women's basketball that rivals, if not surpasses, the WNBA in financial scale, marketing reach, and overall ambition. And at the center of this global basketball experiment, Caitlin Clark. This is a player who already redefined college basketball. She broke viewership records. She dragged women's hoops into the national conversation. Her presence alone changed how people engaged with the sport. And now, she could be the cornerstone of an entirely new league on an international stage with financial incentives the WNBA simply can't match. That's the big sell. Project B is not offering slightly better pay. It's offering transformative wealth, salaries that reflect star power, contracts that don't just respect the game, they reward it like never before. This isn't just a bump in base salary. It's a complete overhaul of what it means to be a women's basketball professional. And that's exactly why the stakes are so high. Clark is more than a player right now. She's a symbol. If she says yes, the message goes out loud and clear. This is the future. This is where the money is. This is where the shift begins. Because make no mistake, Project B is trying to spark an industry-wide reckoning. Their vision isn't subtle. They want to create a billion-dollar global enterprise built around women's basketball. They're not waiting for old institutions to evolve. They're bypassing tradition entirely and building their own. And honestly, timing couldn't be better. Caitlin Clark is in her off-season. That's important. It means she's not locked into day-to-day team responsibilities. It means she has space to entertain meetings, field offers, and weigh the biggest decision of her career. And Project B knows it. Their social media strategy, especially the co-founders' behavior, lines up perfectly with this moment. Quiet follow here, another follow there. Boom! Buzz generated. Speculation triggered. People are watching. People are talking. And it's not just fans and analysts keeping an eye on this. The WNBA is absolutely watching. Because if Caitlin signs with Project B, the league's entire structure gets tested. Other top-tier talent could easily follow. And suddenly, the W goes from being the default destination for the best women's basketball players in the world to being just one of the options. That's not a small shift. That's a full-on disruption. And the reason this league might actually pull it off? It's not just about money. It's about strategy. Project B isn't trying to play the game by old rules. They're coming in with global marketing plans, next-level production values, and an understanding that the future of sports isn't confined to national boundaries anymore. The entire sports world is going global, and this is their play to lead that charge in the women's space. The part that makes this so real, so serious, is how Project B is communicating, not with press releases, but with data trails. Who's being followed? Who isn't? When those follows happen, who's interacting? This is the new negotiation theater, and Project B is making it loud without saying a single word. It's a masterclass in digital signaling. Subtle moves, maximum noise, and Clark is right in the middle of it. She hasn't addressed it directly, and that silence? That's powerful, because a denial would kill the story. A confirmation would set it on fire. But holding that space in between keeps everyone guessing and keeps the spotlight firmly locked on her. And frankly, it also proves her value. Caitlin Clark doesn't need to announce anything. Just being connected to this possibility is enough to disrupt an entire league. Just her potential to sign with Project B is enough to trigger global media coverage, frantic speculation, and nervous boardrooms. Because let's be real, this wouldn't just be a signing. It would be a shift, a before and after moment in women's sports. If Clark becomes the face of Project B, the story becomes way bigger than basketball. It becomes a new chapter in global sports power, a clash between tradition and innovation, between existing structures and fresh money. That's what makes this moment so dramatic. It's not just about one league trying to compete. It's about rewriting the rulebook. And Project B is doing it in real time, with social media as their megaphone and Clark as their crown jewel. And if the deal goes through, everything changes. Other players will follow, not just because of the money, but because of the opportunity to be part of something historic. The chance to play in a league where women's basketball isn't a sideshow or a niche or a charity case, but the main event, with real backing, real cameras, real attention. And that's what Project B is betting on. That enough players, led by a generational name like Clark, are ready to take that leap. The only question is, will she jump? That's the tension that's driving this entire narrative. One decision, one signature, could kickstart a domino effect that reshapes everything we know about women's basketball. And with every passing day, every new social media hint, that possibility inches closer to reality. This isn't just sports news. This is sports history in motion. A strategic, well-funded, globally ambitious effort to flip the table and say, we can do it better. And Caitlin Clark? She might be the spark that sets it all off. 2. If you're still watching this unfold, you're not alone. Everyone's paying attention now. Players, coaches, investors, fans. Because no matter what happens next, this moment proves one thing loud and clear. The game is changing. So hit that like button if you're following the drama. Share this with someone who still thinks women's basketball isn't worth watching. Drop a comment. Do you think Caitlin should take the deal? And subscribe for more updates, because trust, this story is just getting started. Let's not slow down now, because what's happening with Caitlin Clark and Project B is more than just another free agency rumor. This is a potential inflection point in women's sports. This is power shifting right in front of us. And every move being made is deliberate. Let's go back to the root of all this, social media. Sounds small, right? But the way this story broke didn't start with press conferences or official statements. It started with follows. Simple follows. Executives from Project B began following not just Caitlin Clark, but other elite players in the women's game. Sophie Cunningham, Jewel Lloyd, and others. And they did it in a tight, intentional window. Not spread out over months, but in a cluster. Enough for people to notice. 2. This wasn't fan behavior. This wasn't casual. It was targeted. And when executives from a league with massive international funding start following your account in public view during your off-season, you know something's up, especially when that league has been described as one of the most well-funded projects to ever target women's basketball. This isn't a stunt. It's a signal. They're making moves, quietly, strategically, and very publicly all at once. And if you're Caitlin Clark, this is a career-defining moment. You've already shattered NCAA records. You've already changed how women's basketball is consumed. You've already brought new fans to the game. Now, with one move, you could become the centerpiece of something that aims to revolutionize the sport entirely. Not just in America, but globally. It's because Project B doesn't just want to be another league. It wants to be the league. And the difference this time is that they actually have the money and planning to try. Let's talk about that money. The WNBA has come a long way, but it still can't compete with the kind of financial power being offered here. Project B is reportedly backed by high-profile Middle Eastern investors. These aren't people interested in minor moves. They think in global terms, billion-dollar terms. This isn't short-term profit chasing. It's about reshaping the space entirely. They're not looking to compete with the WNBA in the U.S. They're trying to build a league that transcends national borders, that speaks to the global sports audience in a way women's basketball hasn't been allowed to yet. And Caitlin Clark, with her unmatched star power, is the perfect launch pad. If she joins, that signing alone has the potential to generate a level of hype and legitimacy that no new league has ever seen at launch. Not just media coverage, market value, sponsorship potential, network interest, international branding deals. You're not just getting a player. You're getting an ecosystem starter. And that's why this has so many people rattled. Because the WNBA is at crossroads. It's already struggled with retaining top talent, especially when overseas leagues in Europe and Asia offer players more money and better playing conditions. The addition of a Saudi-backed, highly structured, well-capitalized league into that mix, that completely changes the math. Now, instead of players feeling like they have to go overseas for income, there's another option. One with more visibility, more media attention, and likely way. More money. If Project B can provide structure, competitive gameplay, and elite pay, that's not just competition, it's disruption. The WNBA can't ignore this. They'll either have to match what Project B offers, or risk being overtaken in influence, attention, and recruitment. Especially if the top stars start leaving. And they will, if Caitlin does, because that's how this goes. The moment one big name breaks rank, others start reevaluating. What once felt impossible suddenly becomes viable. It's not about just chasing a paycheck. It's about being part of something new, something bigger. Building a brand, owning your image, leading change instead of waiting for it. Project B understands that. That's why they're being so calculated. Every social media move is part of a narrative. They're building anticipation without making promises. They're letting the speculation do the work. And it's working. But let's not downplay the complexity here. There's a real tension between opportunity and optics. Some critics will inevitably question the source of the funding. A Saudi-backed league focused on women's sports carries immediate cultural questions about image, about values, about what kind of narrative is being shaped. But here's the twist. Project B seems ready for those conversations. Their moves so far aren't reckless. They're precise. They're clearly trying to build a model that not only pays players, but positions itself as forward-looking, global, and unafraid of shaking the system. And right now, women's basketball needs that shake. For too long, the game has existed in a state of almost there. Almost recognized. Almost paid. Almost covered. But never fully resourced, never fully respected, never fully seen for its potential. Now someone's stepping in and offering to go all in. No maybes, no compromises. And if Caitlin Clark leads the charge, it's not just a personal win. It's a message. It says, players are done waiting. And maybe that's what makes this story so compelling. because we're watching a generational talent wrestle with a generational opportunity. And both choices are valid. Stay with the WNBA, fight from within, continue pushing for change. Or pivot to Project B and rewrite the script entirely. Either way, the game doesn't stay the same. We don't know when the announcement will come. It might be weeks. It might be months. But the signs are everywhere. This isn't a passing rumor. The conversations are happening. The investors are serious. The social media trail is clear. The off-season timing lines up perfectly. This is real. And it's not just about Caitlin Clark's next move. It's about what that move triggers. The shift in recruitment. The ripple in global investment. The way other players, agents, and sponsors start to look at what's possible. If this works, we're not just watching the launch of a new league. We're witnessing the start of a sports revolution built around the idea that women's basketball is not an underdog story. It's a billion-dollar industry waiting for someone to take it seriously. Project B is trying to be the one to do that. And Caitlin Clark? She might be the player who lights the match. Let's keep going because this moment, it's not slowing down, it's snowballing. Every time Caitlin Clark's name comes up in connection with Project B, the buzz gets louder. Not because there's a press release, not because there's an official announcement, but because the pieces are falling into place in real time and people are finally starting to connect the dots. And here's where it really hits. This could be the turning point where women's sports steps into the era it's always deserved. For decades, women's basketball has been fighting uphill. The talent has never been a problem. The hustle, the drive, the skill, it's always been there. But the structure, the money, the media attention, always a step behind, always just short of the spotlight. And now, that might all change because a brand new league is stepping in with something no one else has ever offered. Real financial power, global backing, and a vision to build something bigger than just basketball. Let's not pretend that Caitlin Clark doesn't know her value. She's not just a player, she's a movement. She redefined what's possible for women's college basketball. Ratings, revenue, merch, conversations. She's the reason sports pages stopped skipping over women's games. She brought the casual fans in. She got the culture talking. And now, Project B is clearly trying to bottle that momentum and launch with it, as they're not building slowly. They're building intentionally, targeting star players, aligning with the off-season window, using social media to stir curiosity without saying too much. That kind of approach doesn't happen unless people at the top have a long-term plan and the budget to back it up. And you have to ask, what does it mean if Caitlin Clark says yes? Think about it. The second she signs, everything shifts. It doesn't matter if you're a fan, a coach, a sponsor, or a network executive. Your attention has to move. Because now there's a new epicenter, a league with international funding, a league that's aggressively recruiting stars, a league that's not pretending to play nice with the current system. It's creating a new one. Let's be clear. This isn't some scrappy startup hoping to sneak into the scene. This is a top-down operation. Middle Eastern investment with credible figures involved. Serious infrastructure. And above all, a willingness to put up the kind of money women athletes have always deserved but rarely seen. And that's why this feels so urgent. Because for too long, women in basketball have had to accept less. Less money, less airtime, less respect. Project B is turning that entire equation on its head. They're not saying, you'll get more if you wait. They're saying, you can have it now, and you deserve it. And let's be honest, this doesn't just affect Caitlin Clark. This is bigger than her. If she makes a move, she opens the door for every other elite player who's tired of the status quo. There's a domino effect built into this. A silent promise. If the biggest name in the game takes the leap, others will too. Because this isn't just about one deal. It's about leverage. For the first time, women athletes can look at a real alternative. Not an overseas league with harsh travel, inconsistent coverage, and second-tier treatment, but a structured, media-focused, investment-heavy league that's trying to make them stars. Not supporting characters. Not filler content. The main product. It's not just refreshing, it's revolutionary. And make no mistake, Project B knows exactly what it's doing. This isn't a soft launch. This is a targeted strategy. Their social media activity tells the story better than any official statement ever could. Following Clark, Cunningham, Jewel Lloyd, and others isn't just curiosity. It's courtship. A digital breadcrumb trail that hints at what's already happening behind closed doors. And you know what makes it even more interesting? The timing. This is all unfolding during the off-season, during the one moment where conversations can happen without immediate pressure. That's not luck, that's precision. They're not just watching a market. They're watching the calendar. They know when to move. They know who to move on. And Caitlin Clark? She's the top of that list for a reason. She doesn't just bring stats. She brings energy, visibility, commercial appeal. She's already proved that she can turn a basketball game into a national event. And now, she could help turn a fledgling league into a global powerhouse. Which leads to the question a lot of people are scared to ask out loud. Is this the beginning of the end for the WNBA as the default destination for top talent? Because let's be honest, once one player jumps, others will reevaluate. Not out of disloyalty, but out of realism. If you can earn more, build your brand faster, and play under better conditions, why wouldn't you at least consider it? And if Project B delivers on its promises, if the money is real, if the infrastructure is solid, if the visibility is global, then that becomes a real threat to the existing structure of women's pro basketball. And maybe that's the shake-up the system needed all along. Because this isn't about tearing down the WNBA. It's about finally having options. It's about moving from a one-lane road to a multi-lane highway. That's what true progress looks like. Competition forces evolution. And whether or not Clark signs, the fact that she's even considering it is a sign that we've entered a new era. An era where women's basketball isn't a side note. It's a serious business. That's what makes this moment so heavy, so loaded, so historic. It's not just a personal career decision. It's a cultural milestone. If Caitlin Clark accepts the offer and becomes the face of Project B, she won't just be remembered as a college phenom. She'll be remembered as the player who changed the global game. And if she doesn't, if she stays in the W, stays loyal, fights for change from within, that's powerful too. Because even her consideration of this move forced every stakeholder to wake up and take notice. That's influence. That's power, too. So here we are, still watching, still waiting, still dissecting every follow, every post, every potential clue. Because this isn't just another contract. This is a chapter being written right in front of us. And however it ends, Caitlin Clark won't just be remembered for what she did on the court. She'll be remembered for what she forced the industry to confront. Like this video if you've been following the ride. Share it if you know someone who still doesn't get why this story matters, and comment below. Should she take the deal? Or is her legacy stronger staying put? Either way, hit subscribe. Because no matter what Caitlin Clark chooses next, it's going to change everything.